Next, I want to introduce to the stage Korfiatis, the CEO of flyadeal, Saudi Arabia's first low-cost carrier. Khan? This is the first time that he and I have spoken in person. We were virtual.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet
How
you.
you doing?
It's nice to do this in person, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Long overdue.
Okay. All right, so let me ask you a broad question first. In the first place, what brought you to Saudi Arabia?
The opportunity. I mean, I was probably as blind to what Saudi Arabia was firstly and foremost, and then followed by blind to the aviation opportunity in Saudi Arabia before this opportunity came to me to go and start a fully fledged, ultra LCC, which Saudi Arabia did not have. And frankly, initially, my inclination was, I'm not sure if I'm interested, and I had no reason to say that other than it was just the unknown. And as I engaged and met people in the industry, other people in the ecosystem in Saudi Arabia, and spent some time studying the opportunity, it sold itself. And it's been an incredible, I've been there 6.5 years now, and it's been an absolutely incredible journey, and I think really we've only just started, and it's all ahead of us, and the more exciting times are actually in front of us rather than behind, as much as it's fun to do a startup airline and build it from nothing to, we'll be in the next month carrying our 20th million passenger, and just for 23 alone, we're expecting to carry 9 million passengers. So it's been an amazing journey, but as I say, the best is yet to come. The Saudi Arabia story itself is just mind-blowing. In terms of the infrastructure projects, its diversification of the economy away from the traditional industries that supported Saudi Arabia, and the fact that the aviation industry is an enabler to achieving those economic objectives, because frankly, if we don't provide the capacity to bring people in and out, it's never going to happen. And our aviation targets, as one of my industry colleagues from JEDCO, the CEO this morning, was saying, our passenger market in 2019 was 100 million passengers. That's domestic and international. And our target by 2030 is to take that to 330 million. So that's more than tripling the size of the market, and something that's a substantial market anyway, and one of the largest economy in the GCC. So it's an incredibly exciting time to be there. I was in Southeast Asia 20 years ago, launching my first low-cost startup airline here in Jetstar, and this was really the growth region. And well, with 700 million people, it's still a growth region. But I think the annual percentage increases are perhaps coming off. They're still positive, but they're lower. That growth opportunity and LCC penetration in the Middle East is still quite low. So, the upside there is just phenomenal. And for me, that's really the significant growth story in the coming years ahead.
One interesting thing to me about Saudi Arabia is you are the LCC from the country. You're owned by Saudi Arabian Airlines, right?
Right.
And we hear Wizz Air is being brought in by the government to sort of run some routes, and they're a very famous LCC. How does what you do complement what they do?
So for the moment, Wizz is not a Saudi Arabian airline. It's operating as a foreign airline using its the ASAs, the air service agreements available to them from the jurisdictions they have a domicile in Europe. So they've very quickly established a number of international routes into Saudi Arabia, particularly into the 3 major airports. But they're not a Saudi airline. There's no domestic network, and they're not flying ex-Saudi to other places. So it's like any of the other foreign carriers that are flying in. We hear there's potentially interest for them to do more than that, but there's nothing been announced on that so far. But frankly, Saudi Arabia is home to us. We're proudly Saudi. 3/4 of our staff are Saudi at least. And, we're vested in Saudi Arabia for the long term, and it's home. And we have a huge responsibility with the whole Saudi ecosystem to deliver on the 330 million by 2030.
What is your customer mix? Is it mostly Saudis?
It has predominantly been until now, because until very recently, we were just a domestic airline. So when we launched the airline in 2018, we thought we'd be commencing international flights relatively soon. But what we had underestimated was the latent demand domestically for an ultra LCC operation. And we were filling the aircraft domestically as quickly as we were bringing them in. So we thought, well, maybe we're better off to concentrate initially on building out a comprehensive domestic network before we charter into the international field. And, you know, in late 19, early 20, we thought, okay, now's about the right timing. We were flying to, I think, 18 out of the 25 odd airports, and we're now at over 20 of those 25 airports. And then unfortunately, this thing, COVID, came along, which was a blessing for us, I guess, because we didn't have the international exposure. So it put those international expansion plans obviously on ice, and it enabled us to survive through the COVID period in a very healthy shape. There's not many airlines that can say that. And the other thing we did, which is really a bit mind-blowing, is that we grew our fleet by 150% during COVID. And we got back to 2019 passenger levels in 21, and in 22, still sort of in the COVID era, we were 50% larger than we were already in 2019 in passenger terms, and 150% fleet terms. And this year, we're going to grow another 50%. So it's a phenomenal domestic story. And therefore, the customer demographic has been predominantly Saudi. Having said that, 18 months ago, we took our first step into international. It was a very modest one in 21. We upped that in 22. So currently, we fly to Turkey and Jordan, Kuwait, Egypt, the UAE, and Sudan. And this year, we have intentions to operate 20 new international destinations, including, you know, points in Europe as summer destinations, but then points across, more points in Africa, more points in a couple of the countries that we're currently in, and further north, as we did in the summer season last year, where we had flights to Georgia and Azerbaijan as well.
That is some pretty impressive expansion.
It is. It's kind of exhausting. We've had a lot of fun, and it's really a testament that the market is there. I mean, to be able to grow that much during COVID tells a story of the potential for Saudi Arabia. So imagine getting out the other side of it now, which we are. And, you know, Saudi's now open to tourism. We have visas on arrival. The Umrah traffic is finally able to come back. We're going to have the largest Hajj season this year than we had pre-COVID. The tourism assets are being built at a phenomenal rate, and they are as outstanding as the images you will see, you know, through the Saudi Tourism Authority would show you. It's tremendous, and frankly, I didn't even know they were there before COVID came along, and we couldn't get outside and spend holidays going to see family. We discovered the kingdom, and its tourism assets are absolutely world class, and there's a lot of them. So it's really, as I say, you know, we're writing the Saudi Arabia story, which is the flyadeal story is being written on the back of the Saudi Arabia story, and it's a unique opportunity.
All right, so you know, I've read some of your marketing materials. I read a lot of airline marketing materials. Yours says that you want to be 100% digital business. You know, it's a good slogan, but what does it mean in practice?
So when we were launching flyadeal, and we were looking at our distribution strategy and our go-to-market strategy and our marketing strategy and how we're going to talk to our potential customer set, you know, look, a purely digital play is nirvana, right? And that's what everyone would aspire to. It's simple, it's agile, it's cost-effective, it's what the current consumer looks for. But it's not necessarily so easy to deliver in all markets. There's different demographics, and we were debating internally, could we launch entirely digitally? Bottom line is we backed ourselves to do it. So Saudi Arabia has a young demographic. Something like 70% of the population is under the age of 35. On a per capita basis, if you take all the social media platforms, we're probably top 2 or 3 or 5 in the world across all of them, pretty much. And so we thought, well, if there was ever a place to try this, it was here. So we launched the whole brand of the airline, the whole sales platform, the whole distribution strategy was direct to the consumer and digitally only. And we filled the aircraft from the first day. They took to it quickly. Even today, domestically, 95% of our sales are through our digital channels, which is our app and our website. 60% of it is through the mobile app itself. So that's really the mobile first, and heard Mandy touch on this before. It's at the core of the strategy going forward, and where we're investing most in our technology rather than the website, although it's still relevant. And the 5% that's not direct is really just through, we have sales offices in the airports, people do come last minute and buy tickets. So it's worked. And I think for domestic, that will continue to work. Internationally, that's going to be challenged, that model. You know, if we're looking, for example, this year to fly to South Asia. And in South Asia, the nature of the customer demographic coming into Saudi Arabia is different. The way they purchase is different. So coming back to being agility and catering to the market demands the same way the market demand in Saudi Arabia was a digital one and digitally capable. In South Asia, it'll be a hybrid model. There'll be some digital, but there'll be some traditional distribution there as well. It's the nature of the beast. You know, we're going to love to see it one day be entirely digital as well. It's not ready yet. Saudi is a bit more advanced, I guess, on the technology front.
In a little bit, we're going to have a panelist up here from Bonza, the Australian airline, and she was telling me before, you can only purchase a ticket on their airline on a mobile app. There is no desktop website. And you had talked about a lot of your customers are booking on mobile. Is there any benefit to the airline for them to be booking on mobile, or does it really not matter how people book as long as they book direct?
Do you mean, is there an advantage of it being mobile versus web?
Yeah.
Look, from a cost point of view, not a lot, honestly. I think that's a differentiator. It's really just a matter of whether there's a demand for that. I mean, if web fell away to be 1 or 2% or 10%, you might say, well, we won't invest in it anymore, we'll focus entirely on the mobile. We do, however, still, it's 60%, but it's not 100%. So we're putting most of the development into the mobile platform first. I personally believe that is going to be the way it goes forward, and I think there'd be a consensus on that. I don't think anyone would debate that, but until we see those web channels becoming less prevalent and less required, we'll continue to have something there, at least for the market that seeks it that way.
All right, I'm going to ask a bit of a niche question here because this is an airline conference. You recently signed up with Navitaire?
Re-signed, actually.
Re-signed.
We re-signed back to Navitaire, yeah.
What functionality does the new deal give you, or is it pretty much the same as it was?
There is expanded functionality. Navitaire is continuing to evolve in its own range of products. And we're exploring implementing some of those, some which we haven't had so far in our first 5 years of existence. But you know, that remains the backbone, obviously, now that we've re-signed for another period of time with them going forward. We were the first airline customer globally to move to their Cloud H2 solution. Provides lots of benefits to them and for us in terms of just agility, changes, and being able to add technologies onto it. So it's been a good relationship between us, and it will continue to be. We always keep an eye on the broader market. You know, one of the lovely things about attending these sorts of forums, and you can see what's out in the hall. And 90% of what's out in the hall, or if not 95% of it, is all about technology. So it's always good to catch up and see what's there. There's some old faces that we've seen around who are still doing good things and some new things, and there's a whole bunch of new players who are doing different things as well. So, you know, we're always looking at how to provide the products that our customers might look for, and ultimately being a one-stop shop for them for travel. And that one-stop shop all sits on the digital platform, and it's primarily the mobile app.
Thank you. All right, so I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen lots of versions of low-cost carriers, and some of them, you know, like Ryanair, they know what they're good at. They stick with that all the time, and it never changes. And some of them decide, you know, over time, we're going to fly bigger airplanes. We're going to fly wide-body airplanes. Maybe we're going to do a premium economy. That might lead to a business class. And then all of a sudden, they're not the airlines that they started out as. Are you, looking to grow this airline into something else, or are you really focused on keeping it as it is?
So I'll separate the aircraft decision in the discussion for a second and come back to that, but purely from a product and a customer proposition standpoint. And the whole reason there was an Ultra LCC opportunity in Saudi Arabia was that there is another competitor we have in the market who had their origins in low cost and morphed into being in a hybrid and left that space open. And I'm not saying that hybrid is wrong. It's what suited them for their own reason. We're part of the Saudia group. Saudia is a 5-star Skytrax airline. We don't need flyadeal to pretend to be a Saudia airline. Anyone that wants Saudia can fly mother airline or sister airline anytime they want. But then if they're looking for the product that we offer, we want to stay true to what that is about and the value it delivers. It's the reason we've been filling our aircraft since we started the airline. So there's no reason for us to deviate from that. In terms of the international market expansion, the narrow body gives us pretty much access to a lot of the markets we would have interest in, between the longer range narrow bodies, if you like, as well as the 320s, which we currently fly. Having said that, there is a low-cost customer demographic that's wide-body distance away from Saudi Arabia. And I would not say it would be impossible that you may not see a flyadeal wide-body aircraft one day. It's not something we've got an order in for or a decision made on where you're going to see it in the next 12 or 24 months. But there, as I said, there is a low-cost demographic looking for an ultra-low-cost product in markets that are wide-body distance away, and they're significant size markets for Saudi Arabia. So they could be a potential option for us.
Well, just yesterday on this stage, the CEO of Cebu Pacific said that you will not find a better cost-effective aircraft than a 439-seat A330neo.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I think they've got the highest density A330neo out of any operator in the world. Yeah, you're right. Look, but look, it's the A330neo perhaps today, but there's a lot of things going on in the aircraft world as well. Looking for further efficiencies. You can certainly, I guess a Boeing equivalent, you could put about 440 seats on also, which is a twin-engine, pretty cost-effective solution. They would be potential aircraft selections for us if we were going to go down the wide-body track. But yeah, it does, on a long-haul sector, and I know the routes that Cebu operates it on, it gives a very, very attractive CASK, cost per seat, and that's obviously at the core of the customer proposition to deliver low airfares.
Thank you so much, Khan. We're going to leave you up here and bring the panel up.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.